Okay, guys, I think most of you are now with us. So I'd like to welcome you all to this afternoon's webinar hosted by Hills Green. Do you have a brand or a business? For those of you who have been part of our latest series of webinars, you will get the feeling that it is very informal. As Ben said to me the other day, it's pretty much like going for a pub chat, except for we're being recorded. So there's going to be no death by PowerPoint today, but plenty of conversation. So those of you who haven't used Google before for Google Meets, bottom right hand corner there is a load of squares. So if you click on that, there is Q&A. So as we're going, if there's any burning questions that you've got, feel free to pop them there, and I will do my very best to try and put them to the panel as we're in the discussions. So those of you who don't know me, I'm Andy Venables. I'm CEO here at Hills Green, and really pleased to be joined by my colleague Ed, who's Sales and Marketing Manager here at Hills Green, and then Ben, who has basically been part of the Hills Green family since day dot, who's joined us here, and then also Rachel Watling, who also has been part of the Hills Green family for many of years, but is currently the National Marketing Manager at Agri. So Ed, do you want to just give a quick intro to everyone in terms of your background and why you should be on here today?
So I'm Ed Seed. I'm originally a dairy farmer's son, but like a few people in dairy farm in the past few years, we were not big enough to keep going. So got pushed off the dairy farm and went to university to do marketing, and was silly enough to stay on and do a master's degree in marketing and AI. From there, I did a 5-year stint at Farmers Guardian, working on the event side, doing marketing and really just both visitor and exhibitor, really trying to get as many people and footfalls to the shows as possible. And then from there, I went into the exciting world of buying groups. So I was helping market a buying group on a sort of a smaller scale. And then from there, I've joined the lovely lot of Hills Green, and it was my year anniversary the other week. So they've been enjoying my presence for the entire 12 months now. But so I suppose my sort of key area of marketing is the strategy side of it. I absolutely love strategy and how that combines with the sales process.
Perfect. And Ben?
Yep. Hi everyone, Ben Hampson. So I have zero ag background until I started working with Andy, besides chickens in the back garden, and there was about 4 of them. But my background is, so I'm a copywriter by trade. I've been doing that now for 15, 16 years, I think. Before that, I was working in politics in the US, which is a very different kind of branding exercise, but got my teeth over there. Worked for digital marketing agencies over here, and since then worked for kind of every kind of company going in every sector, from dentists to global intelligence agencies, from rural diversification to international fertilizer manufacturers, here, there and everywhere. As I say, copywriter. My main focus of the past kind of 5-10 years has been looking at message and messaging and what we call message first marketing, and how brands and businesses have been leveraging that, and how they apply things like tone of voice to increase their reach and awareness. Yeah, that's me.
Perfect. Thanks, Ben. And Rachel?
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. As you say, Andy, quite nostalgic to be back. So thanks for having me back for this webinar. Rachel Watling, based over in Suffolk. I am the National Marketing Manager at Agri. I've progressed through 3 roles at the group and can't believe it's nearly been 7 years since I joined back then. And yeah, we're one of 7 working on some really exciting projects, and really looking forward to having a chat with you today.
Perfect. Thank you. Right. Well, let's get straight into it. Do you have a brand or a business? So I will be very honest with you all. When I started many years ago in marketing, I thought a brand was a logo. And I thought if you've got a half decent logo and you've got something called a color palette and Pantone colors, which also blew my brain when I found out that actually there's specific numbers for specific type of color that represented your brand, then we're all good to go. And if you got a half decent logo, then we could actually get really clear on your audience, get really clear on the message, and pull some levers to generate more leads and more sales. But how wrong was I? particularly in the last sort of 5 to 10 years, working very closely with Ben on building brands. A brand is far more than a logo. And actually, often, particularly when we're looking at agriculture, it's very apparent in terms of those businesses that have invested heavily in brand. If I mention tractors, maybe some of you had John Deere come to mind before I've even gone on in the conversation. So how powerful it can be in terms of to invest in your brand. So just for a little bit of insight, Ed intrigued us all the other day by actually telling us where brand came from. So Ed, would you like to share your little story?
So this is actually quite interesting because it's really relevant to the agricultural industry. So your brand first came from, was called brand from when during like the 1800s, early 1900s, when ranching became really big in America. So there was a lot of ranches spread across a lot of the prairies and plains, and there was that many of them, people couldn't keep track of who they were buying what from. So you were really gambling with the quality of the cattle you were buying. So everyone started branding their cattle. So if it came from a company you really trusted, you'd know you could spend more on a certain cow. But if it was a brand you weren't really familiar with or unbranded, it usually meant it was either stolen or not really to be trusted. So that's where like the moniker brand came from, and sort of the brand reputation was such a big thing.
Perfect. So when it comes to brand, one thing that we like to do with all of these webinars, by the way, again, if you've not attended, is use of polls. So back down to the right-hand corner of your screen, click those dots there. You should be able to get access to polls. So I'm just going to launch our first one here. Really interested. We've got an array of different people, different backgrounds on the webinar today. Would you describe your company as a business, a brand, or both? So like I say, we've got CEOs, MDs, marketing managers, brand managers, ag, non-ag, but maybe selling to farmers. Just really intrigued in terms of just a bit of a snapshot in terms of, do we even recognize that we are a brand or a business? So just take a vote there.
I think a good analogy of the difference between a brand and a business is, for people who are struggling to answer, the business is the coffee, and the brand is what it's in. So is it in a cup? Is it in a mug? That's your brand.
Okay. I always use the train analogy. So a business is kind of your products, they're sitting inside the carriages, and the brand is the train engine. It's what drives your business. It's what brings your products to your audience.
Cool. Well, just looking at the votes there, as it stands at the minute, I'd be interested by the time we finish this webinar if I put another poll on the end, see whether we're still in the same place. But the majority of you are saying that you feel like you've got both. You feel that you have a brand and the business. 3 votes down there for just a business, and a couple of votes there that they just think that they have got a brand. So we talked about like, what does the difference between a brand and a business mean? But Ben, why do you think so many companies confuse the two?
It's a good question. I think it's just general lack of awareness. I think when you're stuck in the day-to-day, you're working in the business, aren't you? It's just, right, I've got products, I need products or services that we've got to sell. So you're kind of hung up on, stuck on this is what we do, which is the business. This is the day-to-day, this is what we do. Whereas brand is more about, this is how we want people to feel. This is how we want to be remembered. This is the reason why we're doing it. And that it's a tougher question to answer. It's not a case of, well, our product does X, Y, Z, or we can do this and this. It's more of why do we exist? What is our driving force? And that is it's a harder question to answer. And you stray into the kind of non-tangible things, which I think puts a lot of people off. You know, if you're owning a business, you want to be able to grab something and brand can seem like it's something that you can't touch.
Yeah, I totally agree, Ben. I think we all live in a world where we're so time poor as well, and these sorts of activities are that next step forward, and you've got to have that time, resource and business buy-in as well.
I think it's probably a good time, Rach, just to talk about the Agri brand, because in the world of agriculture, Agri is actually quite a young brand. I know you said you've been there 7 years. I believe it's about 15 years since it started. But they have, from an outsider, you've seen that they've recognised the importance of investing in their brand, because it is now a household name in terms of UK agriculture. So, do you want to talk around, why the business recognised it was important to invest in brand?
Yeah, no problem at all. So, I mean, just to start, I thought we're probably doing something right that you've invited me on to talk around this topic. So that's a good vote of confidence. But yeah, so why did we? Yes, the business is relatively young, as you say, 15th birthday next year, but it's actually been built on mergers of 2 other businesses and other smaller businesses over time. So I think within our industry, and it's safe to say that most people from this call are, from the agricultural world, and I think we can all agree that that relationship is still so key. So we want to continue to invest in that brand because we want people to come to us. In some cases, I think that explaining what I do as a job to people that aren't in agriculture, you get there in the end and you go, the blue lorries, and they go, oh, got it. And I'm like, yeah, okay, so that's a real win there. But people within the industry, I'd like to think that the majority have heard of us, and it's about how we keep investing into our business to stay relevant and keep, generating that advice and support and the best R&D back support for them as well to make the best decisions and be profitable.
Yeah, and I think looking back, it's like I said, last 5 years has been a real penny drop moment for me in terms of working with many agri brands build their brands. But quite often I'm starting to see a theme in terms of when it is really evident that potential clients are a business. And I think what I see there, and there's a couple of examples, Ben, that we've worked with, is where I tend to feel, so to have a brand, and we touched this on a previous webinar, you need to have a good product or service. That just needs to be a given, right? You've just got to make sure that the product and service is bloody good, right? So you tend to find these businesses, they have that, right? And they recognize the need from their audience. They are solving a problem with their product or service. And they've worked blinking hard, right, through setting up that business. They've experienced quite a lot of growth, but they've actually got to a plateau, whether that is 1, 2, 3 million in turnover. But the theme tends to be, we've had this high growth, we've got to this level, and we just can't kick on, and we don't know what we're doing wrong to get anywhere. And I suppose it is a bit assumptuous, but it does tend to happen quite a lot in ag. You can recognize that there's been very little investment in marketing. And often those sorts of businesses are seeing marketing as a big cost because they've not tracked a return on investment on it. Yeah. So from a brand perspective, when you start to challenge them and say, why should I work with you? Or what is it you stand for? What are your values? Really get clear in terms of who you are, what you stand for, and where you're going. If I asked several different people sat around that boardroom table, I would get a different answer. And that, to me, when I combine all of those things, they don't have a brand. They may have a logo, they may have a really good product or service, and they may have experienced significant amount of growth, but they can't get any further. And it often tends to be the fact that they've had a lack of investment that's really holding them back.
Yeah. The problem is when you've just got products, when you've just got a business and not a brand, even if your product is amazing, it can be copied, it can be imitated. Someone else can do, by and large, the same product. And then you can maybe differentiate on add an extra feature or add free delivery or a faster service or something like that. But inevitably, they all become the same, and suddenly you're competing against competitors in the same space, and it becomes a race to the bottom. There is nothing that sets you apart, and then it becomes all about price. Whereas if you look at Apple, Samsung Galaxy phones, Google Pixel, what is it that differentiates and what makes people buy one over the other? And it's the brand. That's what attracts people. That's what keeps them loyal. Another way to think about it is a business is a transaction. It is transactional, whereas brand is emotional. And that is that emotion that helps you set yourself apart and keeps your customers coming back again and again.
I mean, you raise a really valid point there, price. You know, in agriculture, we end up getting into commodities, don't we? And the only way you can then compete of it is price. And as you say, it's a race to a bottom, and we really don't want to do that. You know, got a farmer down the road that prior to COVID decided to go into processing, manufacturing and marketing its own milk. Now they've added a significant premium onto their raw material product. And I tell you what, they're driving very different cars now to what they were doing pre-COVID. So we started to touch on return on investment. How do we track the value of brand? What is that return that we're getting? Ed, this has been your baby in terms of the Marketing to Farmers report that we've just released, and for the second year we've started to ask farmers about brand. So do you want to just talk to us a little bit about what we asked farmers, and really therefore the importance when it comes to brand?
So we asked them around basically the brands they could recall without any prompting, and as you can imagine, there's a lot of the key players get brought up. John Deere, Massey Ferguson, Horsch was a key one. And then we also asked them, but we coded them in ways like you've got your key players, but then you also got challenger brands who haven't been around as long. And then we also asked them why. And it all just came back to sort of marketing, sales, and quality of product. So if you've got really, like echoing Andy said at the start, if you've got really good customer service, great, it'll really boost you. If you've got a great product, it'll really boost you. And then, but the social media is sort of a new one, particularly around social media marketing. So that's both organic and paid. If you're actively doing that, and this is where we saw the likes of Ridgeline and T. Parry come in and really sort of challenge the top spots, who are in essence a challenger brand. They were using those to a really good effect to get that brand recall. And then onto the sales side, because we also use a report from Nielsen's, which is basically had a lot of good statistics of how brand affects sort of the impact on sales. That it was actually proven that if you've got over 50% brand recall, you will see a massive jump in conversion when it comes to sales. And exactly the same as increasing brand awareness has a direct correlation to increasing sales. So I suppose the point is it's that finding new ways of fishing where the fish are, really. Sticking a phrase I heard yesterday. But it's basically just making sure your brand is in a place where the people you're wanting to hang out with and people see your brand is.
Okay, perfect. Right. Well, I'm going to launch this next question. So we've talked about what the research suggests, that you can actually track a return on investment from brand. But I want you to think about your business that you're currently working for. So do you believe investing in your brand activity is actually having a measurable impact on sales? You know, be completely honest here. If it is, fantastic, but if it isn't, you know, put it out there, because we'll come into discussing maybe ways in which we can start to track that for you. So just head down to the poll section and just place a vote, please.
Just while everyone's covering that, Andy, it was something you said about staying relevant, and I think we as a team always go, is this addressing a growing need here? Because I think you can sometimes get lost in the different trends and, oh, so-and-so's doing that, and, oh, someone's asked me to do this, and being that sort of reactive marketeer. But something I always come back to is something that you taught me back in 2018. Within marketing, you either need to address advice, a pain point, or a discount. Again, and it's just another really useful metric that I've always taken through.
I'm glad that some things have stuck then, right?
Just a couple.
Okay, so looking at that poll, the majority of people on the call are actually saying that, yes, investing in brand is having a measurable impact on sales. And there's a few not sure, on one don't believe it is having an impact on sales. So where do we start then when we're trying to measure the impact on sales and tracking a return on investment? You know, particularly some of the work that we do, you know, it's not cheap, it's an investment. You know, when we are getting a team of senior decision makers together to spend a day in a workshop, peppering them with questions in terms of getting really clear on who they are and what they stand for, and then taking that forward into who their core audience is, what their core message is that they're going to be, what the tone of voice should be.
Yeah.
How do we justify that investment? How do we track the return from that sort of activity?
I think like from the start there, it's not about the sales, you know, from the very get-go when we're in the room with them, it's about alignment and clarity for the team. First off, it's about getting everyone on the same page, and that in itself is invaluable. You know, we've had people talk about our workshops as being like therapy, because it's a chance to argue and figure out what's gone wrong, and suddenly at the end of it, you're all on the same page, you're all singing from the same hymn sheet, and that, you know, that's worth its weight in gold straight away. And then it's everything that kind of spirals off that. Once you've got that brand in place, it's not just the sales themselves or the conversions, it's the fact that it's quicker to get to them because people have that brand recall. They know who you are. If you're launching a new product or service, you're not starting from the bottom. You've built that trust and credibility already. It's much easier. It's much easier to retain your customers. So I think it's 7 times more expensive to get a new customer than it is to keep one. When you've got that brand, you have that brand loyalty, you increase your retention. And then it's even things like once your brand, again, that consistency. So we did tone of voice with one company, and they went away and figured out they needed to rewrite all their call center scripts and how they dealt with customers. And it dramatically reduced the time that people were on the phones and saved them, I think it was 5 million over 3 years, because they half the time that people were there. And that's how you measure it. I say it's not just sales.
I think you raised a number of important points there, Ben. And I think that brand piece, like I say, isn't just about that new business sales. You know, after, you know, the impact it can have on current clients to get that repeat revenue and that longevity in terms of customer lifetime value.
Yeah.
But also one client pointed out to me, like, recruitment is tough. I think we may have a couple of recruitment agencies on today, but they are also expensive. You know, there's a big investment to try and get, you know, the right people in the right seats in your business. So what happens if you've actually invested in your brand, invest in your culture to attract the top talent, so you're not having to invest those headhunters to go and reach out for you?
Yeah.
It's
about being desirable, isn't it? For products or as a company, it's that desire. You know, you're moving from a need to a want to the desire. That is the ultimate goal of a brand.
Yeah, you raised a great point. I think we are very focused on the customer, which is obviously really important, but sometimes you can forget about that internal customer as well.
Great. And Ed, this is something that I suppose you've been quite new to in the last 12 months, and I've definitely brought you on a journey when it's come to brand, but you actually get the cold face when we've put together a pitch or proposal and there's a significant investment required. So what is it you're saying to these clients and prospects to, I suppose, get them to buy into the importance of investing in their brand?
There's a question I've been able to answer this with a lot of time, and it's what does your company mean to you? And usually it's all around. It means one thing or another, and there's usually can fit into 5 different things, but usually it's around helping farmers. And then I always say to them, do your customers know that? And usually I'm met with silence. And it's a really interesting point around how, especially inside companies, especially that top level, whether it's CEO or owner manager, they have a real understanding of what their brand is. But when it comes to actually conveying it to the customer or the prospect, it actually just diffuses, and it's called brand diffusion. Basically, you've got a leader of a business who really, really understands it, but then when it filters to maybe a director level, and then maybe a manager level, and then maybe even an exec or assistant level, who are then dealing with your customers, someone might be writing your emails, your blogs. Then on the other side, it could be your sales execs or your sales managers who are then talking to customers, or your reps. And especially in our culture, we've got a big problem or big opportunity, if you want to look at it either ways. A lot of your companies, and I see a lot of them here, you actually deal with merchant centers. So that adds an entire different level of people, where a lot of the time, the first time someone's going to interact with your brand, it's not actually interacting with you, it's interacting with someone else who should have an idea about your brand. So it's about really ensuring that every single layer of that business really understands the brand and understands what the actual core message is. And I suppose to answer your question along about way, I think majority of businesses do really miss that out. And then once you just raise that to them in a lot of when we speak to prospects and potential new clients, it's a penny drop moment of, oh, if my someone who reports to me doesn't even have a clear picture of the brand, how's someone in a dealership 200 miles up the road going to tell someone about my brand of piece of farm machinery? And I suppose it really just come down to, like, if a customer comes to a sales rep and gets sold a message about the brand, and that's why they really brought into it, but then when they receive a social media post around it or an email and it's a completely different brand message, it creates this really disjointed user journey where people will then start getting confused, and that's where, like, the brand loyalty starts to sort of degrade.
You covered a lot of points there, and I think if I could give you all an action to go away with that might help you decide if you have a brand or you're a business. What Ben alluded to in those workshops is we get team members to give us their elevator pitch. You know, imagine that you've just met up with an old friend, usually in the pub, and they don't know who you now work for or what you do. And they say, oh, how are you doing, Jim? Well, I believe you're now working for X. Who are they? What do you say? What's that immediate pitch to them? And if they don't say, oh, that's interesting, tell me a little bit more about that, and they say, oh, should we have a pint? Like, you're not conveying a message that is resonating with that audience to know more. And then if you go ask your other colleague, if they say something different and another colleague say something different, there is no consistency. As Ben said, if we are not clear about who we are, what we stand for, where we're going, top of an organization, how are we supposed to convey that message, Ed, as you said, to the customer, let alone the wider people within the organization? And brand is often seen as fluffy, or I definitely used to see it as fluffy. Yeah, what was the colouring in department, wasn't it? And it's almost,
haven't heard that for a while.
I've been around a long time, Rach. But I think when we get to these campaigns and we get to these businesses that have stagnated and they've plateaued and they can't get any further along, we often see those that have their tone of voice, their brand guidelines, their brand Bible, they're really clear on their audience, are really clear on their need, their core message, and we put that together into a creative and we start to launch that on paid social, for example. It performs far better than those that just have a logo and a set of imagery. It's almost, I always think within farming it's about the 1%, right? You know, on our dairy farm, the 1%'s made a difference to profit, and that's no different in marketing. These 1%'s coming together in terms of, are we clear as an organization who we are, what we stand for, where we're going, who's the audience, what the core pain points are, what's the core message, and how we're going to reach them. And that is when you start to see the real return.
When you don't have that clarity, that consistency, you have every person, every department doing something a little bit differently, going in a different direction. So if you're trying to launch one campaign, you might have this message, this kind of branding around it going this way. Then the next campaign is going this way. And the audience gets a bit of whiplash and you're not digging into the core pain points. You know, one analogy we use is, imagine you're in a cave and you've got a spade and you need to get out. Do you dig a little bit over here or a little bit over there? Or do you focus on one point and keep digging and keep digging and keep digging until you get out? And that's what brand and what message does. It gives you that single focus that you can repeat again, which is how you get through. Yeah, I think there used to be, you had to see the brand 3 or 4 times for people to be able to recall it. I think that was like 20 years ago now with social media and all that kind of thing. I think it's up to around 12 times. And when you're working in the business, it's easy to kind of get stuck as, oh, well, people have seen our website. We've had the same website up for 3 years, or we've been saying this for the past 6 months, but you've got to keep doing it. You've got to keep hitting home on the same campaign, the same message to be able to cut through.
There's so much changes in the market constantly, isn't there? That and I keep saying, staying relevant. And it's something you said earlier, Andy, that prompted me about that Jeff Bezos quote of your brand is what customers say about you when you're not in the room. And we always take that approach of what do they say and what do we want them to say?
Yeah, okay, completely agree on that. And I think you then bring in the importance of to stay relevant. It isn't about investing in all of that work and then putting your feet up and saying we've got it. We've got the brand Bible, we've got the tone of voice, the core messaging, the audience, and we're all good because that's what Blockbuster and Woolworths did. You know, and where are they? And it is. You do see those brands that are on it and they are constantly looking, refining, are they still relevant to their audience, and therefore does their look and feel still appeal, does their messaging still appeal? And we've got it is this ongoing investment, because otherwise if you make the investment, put it in the drawer and forget about it, it will be far more costly in the future. Might be getting me on my soapbox. Right, so next bit. How do we start by building a brand? So we've got another poll for you to go and have a look. So where do you think you should start when building a brand? Is it around audience research? Is it around the messaging and the strategy? Is it about marketing execution, or are you not sure? And this can be going back to the existing brands already in place, you know, building, sort of refreshing the brand. You know, you still would start in the same place. So just head to the poll and give us your votes on that. Okay, they're coming in thick and fast now. So no one believes we should go straight on and do the marketing execution, which is good, because my early days of running marketing workshops, everyone get overexcited and just wanted to do stuff. Let's get on, let's set up Facebook, let's get, you know, start putting this leaflet, this advert in the magazine, here we go. But it's the hardest piece, but take a step back. So a few people have said look at the messaging and the strategy, but the majority of you saying audience research. So Ed, who's right?
I'd say audience research is right. I think
I'd agree.
Before you start off with thinking about a messaging or some sort of messaging strategy, you need to really think about what's this message matter to my audience. And without that, and then stealing a bit of Rachel's thunder before, your pain point is really, especially in consumer, it is pain or desire. But I think in ag, we're very more leaned on that pain side. A lot of the time, people make purchases based on having a problem. And that's really what you need to know before you even start with messaging or strategy. Like if you don't have that sort of information on target, you're just making an assumption then, and it's not really going to land. And you just really need that data. Because a lot of people think brand isn't data led, but it really should be as much as any sort of form of marketing. Should really understand, have lots of data around what my audience is feeling, what problems they're having, and what really resonates with them. Can get a bit expensive, but honestly, I do really think it's worth its weight in gold.
I mean, we as an organisation have seen a massive difference in the last 5 years. So I started this agency with the sort of point that I understood farmers. If I'm really honest, I understood dairy farmers. And if I'm really honest, I probably understood dairy farmers within Cheshire. But what we've done with the Marketing to Farmers report, by collecting data nationwide from different walks of life, different types of farming, age, different decision-making profile, not only has this allowed us to put to a nice report and ultimately provides a very good lead gen tool for us, but it provides us real insight into that audience. What are their pain points? What are their needs and wants, and where they're hanging out? And then you can put a plan together. I mean, you say, Rach, that Agri is 15 years next year. But even you guys have seen the importance with another significant investment in market research this year.
Yeah, and I promise Andy hasn't paid me to say this, but we actually use the Marketing to Farmers report when it comes out every year, go through it, right, what's relevant to us. Obviously, there's some parts that aren't, but most are. And it's a really useful tool that we will use as part of our planning. But yeah, as Andy suggests, we've recently just done some customer survey work and used it as a bit of an opportunity to temperature check, which has been really valuable. And big part of my role for the next year is now delivering that. And I think that's really key. I was really lucky 2 years ago to go on the Mark Kristen's mini MBA qualification. And one of the places where we started was market research. And one of the areas that stuck with me is, if you're going to do market research, bloody do something about it. Like, don't go out and ask people things and then not do anything about where they maybe have the pain points or whatever it is. So I think, again, that's important to have that buy-in from the wider business as well, rather than it being another, marketing exercise and ticking a box per se.
And to go into your point, Ed, because it can get very expensive, but it doesn't need to be. Like I say, we've got some data from the Marketing Farmers Report, but I've also, there is a few clients on here. Most of you are going to events. Most of you are talking to your customers or potential new customers. What happens if we started to ask a fewer questions when the sales rep are going out to see the customer or a prospect, or we're at the front of the burger queue that you've put on for all of your customers, and we asked a couple of questions? What's your biggest challenge at the minute? And how can we help? Because I tell you, you start to know some of that information, and going back to your point, Ed, in terms of how we market and resonate with the audience, that message will resonate far better if we understand what the audience is going through and what they really need and how we can help. We've done quite a bit of work just recently about getting into personas. So I'm going to come to you, Ben. When it comes to personas, I suppose, how important is it that brands start to develop personas and really get clear on their ideal target audience?
It's massive, isn't it? If you don't know who you're selling to, how can you sell effectively? You have to be crystal clear, and it gives you that ability then to target your messaging, to be super focused on, right, this persona has these main problems, if we touched about these pain points. And it means you can drill into more than just pain points as well. You can drill into kind of triggers. What is it that will make them act? Not just a pain now. Is there something that happens? Is there something that will change their mind? And just build out that persona. And then once you can get inside their heads, you can then create several different messages that target lots of different perceptions, how they feel, how they think, what their wants are, what their pain points are. Really focus on that. And when you know exactly who that persona is, you can then talk their language, which again is back to that audience research, back to talking to prospects and customers, finding out what they think, doing research into things like reviews of products, emails, complaints, all that kind of thing. There's actually, every business has a treasure trove of information that has this kind of authentic customer language in, that you can pick out and use to build out those personas, which then inform what that messaging is going to be and the strategy. If you have 2 or 3 personas, you can then go, this is our strongest. This is where we need to focus 70% of our budget, because they've got the biggest pain point. They've got the most urgent need. They're the ones that are most likely to buy.
And then really this leads on quite nicely in terms of, once you've got really clear on those ideal personas, there will be certain customers that come to mind in terms of that would be ideal. And we ultimately know in this sector, farmers buy from farmers. So like Ed, how important is it that we then look to utilize testimonials and case studies?
It's so important, because if you're if we think of ourselves as consumers, how powerful is that sort of referral, that word of mouth testimonial? And it's the point of that there is a lot of value in telling people who you are as a brand, and there is that. I'm not saying there's no value in it, but you will get to a point where it'll only get you so far. And if you have some good solid testimonials, case studies of proving your point, and I always go back to GCSE English: point, evidence, explain. Make your point, tell everyone who you are, and then provide them with the social proof. So that's reviews, testimonials, case studies, trial data, results. Back up who you are, and really tell people about, yeah, I'm saying I am the best at dairy equipment in the UK. Here's 100 farmers who all agree in testimonials and reviews that I am the best at dairy equipment in the UK. Then it becomes such a powerful message, and that sort of reverberation, which you do really want to get from your brand awareness. It's not necessarily you just shouting an echo chamber, this is who I am, this is who I am. If you're also backing that up, where it does come really important to have that strong product and customer service, then when you can back that up with that, that's where the real power comes from.
And I think with that, testimonials, case studies make great content for organic social. They make great pieces of content to go on the website. But where we're seeing a lot of wins, not to give away all our secrets, is then incorporate them with some paid social. You know, so almost like when those people are towards the bottom of the funnel and they're getting ready to buy, you know, they know about your product and service. They're aware of your brand. They've been looking into you, and then they start to have these testimonials that aren't just saying, yeah, you're the best thing since sliced bread. A little bit like a client Teagle, where say it saves us 30 minutes a day. Actually, when that sort of message really lands with that audience, like, well, flipping heck, if you can save me 30 minutes a day, then I'd definitely like to have a conversation. Just continuing with personas, we just got a question that's come through. So this is for you, Ben. So company here that they feel that they've got upwards of 20 personas. How do they manage that?
I think my first question back there would be, do you need 20 personas? Is that too many? It might, you know, you might have very niche products in very niche sectors or something like that. And it might be the case that, yeah, you feel you do. And obviously the more granular they go, the more you could target your messaging. But I think first, yeah, is that necessary? Is that complicating it that we can avoid? Secondly, if it is, then I think I tend to kind of build out your messaging in like a pyramid. So you need a key message at the top that's going to work across all personas. And then you come down a level, then you might have 3 or 4 messaging pillars, and you might go, right, persona 1 is only going to focus on this messaging pillar, persona 2, this messaging pillar. Then you break it down again and say, right, now let's get into the very specific headline details. So we've got our key message. Now we've got the smaller headline details that can be swapped out quite quickly. The key is 1, consistency, as we said, so that brand is communicating that same core message across everything. 2, that it's easy to apply, then it's easy to execute, so that the team on the ground, whoever is working on social media, still an event stand, wherever it might be, can quickly grasp it and tailor it without too much thought to that specific persona, that specific audience.
Perfect. And I think, you know, for my 2 pen, I always keep going back to KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. And it's not, when we're talking about creating personas, we're not saying that these are the only people we're going to work with and going to sell to in our business. It's about thinking of those ideal. And there'll be, you know, a few different audiences that think, just thinking of a client we spoke to the other day, you know, there was grazing farmers, there was young people in ag, and there was farm vets. They also sell to equine, they also sell to people in arable, etc. But these are the core audiences that they really want to reach. So therefore, going back to your point, Ben, that they can tailor the message and the marketing to try and hit those audiences. So we will move on to the next poll question. So I'll just launch that now. So this is looking at, what is your biggest frustration with brand building? Do you feel that it is too hard to measure? Do you feel that it takes too long? Is it something that you feel costs too much? Is it you don't know where to start? So if you just head down to the voting there and let us know what you think.
Just on the personas piece, I'm just sitting here and digesting it all. And I think that you're like, oh, yeah, we really need to revisit that actually. And I'm writing lots of notes here as takeaways from this already myself. But I think you go, that's one of those pieces where you're digging deeper, and it's not the reactive day-to-day generic marketing sort of mixed stuff. But I guess it's about, would you say it's staying targeted, staying relevant? If you have got, you know, a certain amount of budget and time, it's okay, who do we need to target with this product, with this timing, with this service, just so it's not too overwhelming, would you say, Ben?
I think it's a really, for me, what jumps out there, I think that, yeah, who do you want to target? And that's the key. There are almost 2 types of personas. There's the ones that you're working with now that are great, that bring in the money, fantastic, we like those. But actually, we're looking to grow, we're looking to go somewhere different, we're looking to diversify somewhere else. And then you might have that, this is where we want to get towards. We don't have this.
And then break them down from there.
We want to get there, yeah.
Yeah.
But we're just looking at the results here. It's a bit more of a mixed bag compared to the other polls. So biggest frustration is that it's too hard to measure, followed by not knowing where to start. And then a couple of people feel it takes too long. A couple of people cost too much money. It isn't as easy as lead gen, to be perfectly honest, and also isn't as easy as e-commerce, because when an e-commerce client comes to us, we can track everything right from the activity right through to sale. Lead gen, we actually can see what is that return on investment from what we've spent. But investing in brand is quite a challenge. But hopefully, from what we've just talked to you about, there's a few things to look at from that perspective. I think I'm going to pick on you again, Rach. But in terms of you talked about the marketing mix, but talking about a budget that you would have for a large brand with Agri, just actually making sure that there's a good split in terms of activity there for lead gen versus brand.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, like I said before, it comes back to, does this address growing needs? Is that at the core? I think I would always treat the Agri wallet like it's my own as well. Like, if this was your business, if this was your money, like, would you be investing in that? Is it actually really where the budget should be spent? And I think also, you know, we budget and set that up in February, and we're already in our new financial year in August, and we've already had various new projects come through, which are really great because it's actually in response to the customer survey and what our customers are telling us. So it's fantastic to be working on those projects and delivering it because of that need, but then reallocating that budget and going, okay, well, this is now a priority, what unfortunately now has to drop.
Yeah, I think there's the first and foremost, you need to accept that investing in brand is for the long term. We've recently sponsored the BFAs last week, which is a significant investment for a small business like us. And it's not the case that I was hoping that the leads would come in on the Friday following the Thursday. That investment there is for Hills Green's brand in the next 5-10 years' time. And I came across something the other day in terms of actually how you should allocate your budget across like lead gen versus brand. And I thought this was quite a good takeaway. But it was sort of saying a foundation level when you're starting off, 70% should be around like the lead gen activity, pulling those levers, with 30% towards brand. As you're going into that growth stage, it's more 50-50. And then when you're getting more towards that well-established brand and you're almost at a leadership level, you should be looking at 60% of your budget towards brand and 40% towards lead gen. So just bear that in mind, depending on what stage your business is at. I'm conscious of time, but there's a few things that I do want to cover before we wrap up. I'm going to come to you, Ben, for this one. But we've come across many clients and some that didn't become clients over the years, and we've seen them go away and try to work on this stuff on their own. So what are sort of the biggest mistakes that we've seen that clients make when it comes to sort of investing in that brand piece?
I think the biggest one is consistency again, and it's not following through. If you're going to put any time and effort to it, keep going, stick with it. You know, if once you commit to it, keep at it. If you're going to spend 2 days looking at brand and then you're going to spend on a new logo and relaunch something and then just kind of drift back to the old ways, what's the point? I think that's the biggest frustration in investment point of view. From a kind of, I guess, more practical point of view, and something I guess everyone can go away and look at now, it's probably around tone of voice. And it's the biggest frustration I see is people drifting towards corporate bullshit, for want of a better word, in their marketing, because when they write it down, they think it has to be super formal and quite stiff. So I guess a takeaway is go away, look at your marketing, look at your messaging. If you wouldn't say it to a farmer in the field, if you wouldn't say it sat around with the farmer at a kitchen table face to face, why are you saying it like that on your website? Why is it like that in your product brochure? Get rid of it, change it.
So we talk about like Yeah, as you quite keenly put it, marketing bullshit. But what about AI, and what's that doing to brands' message and tone of voice?
Pros and cons, isn't it? I think there's a big opportunity there to bring that consistency, because if you do it right with AI, you can use that across your teams to control the message and apply that tone of voice. If you build it out correctly, it's a big tool that can help with that. The problem is, if you don't do that, if you just default to generic, you're going to get generic, and you're going to see, you can see it now. I can look at something and go, yeah, AI's written that. There are so many tells that, and you just get in this kind of perpetuating spiral where it's learning from itself. It's saying the same thing again and again. And then again, there's no differentiation. Everyone's saying the same thing.
Right. And Ed, this is your bag, and something that you're working closely with a number of clients on. So do you want to just talk in a bit more detail around that?
Yeah, so it's the one thing that we always tell people about AI, and to use Ben's word, if you put shit in, you get shit out. And it's about making sure like you're training these models in the right way. And what we've been doing for a lot of clients is actually taking a tone of voice document and a brand guidelines and everything you need to know about them, and then also taking some high performing marketing copy. So whether that's blogs, that's done extremely well, social media posts, ads, and then actually training a model on that, basically uploading it and then training it and spend a bit of time with it to make sure it's flowing right. And then you can actually then sort of roll that out to an entire marketing team. So say you've got 12 people constantly writing copy for you in your marketing team. It can be really hard for one director to keep control of the entire brand message that's going out. But then if you roll that out and everything's going through that, and I'm not saying telling the AI to go write social post for me. I'm saying write the social post yourself, then put it into AI as like a bit of a sense check. Plus, it has the added benefit of that you actually won't ever do any typos anymore. And of course, like Ben said, there's a lot of AI tells. So what I do a lot of times as well, train them out of them. So make sure there's no M dashes, make sure it's absolutely will not say in the world of UK agriculture. and just really making sure that it is coming in an active human voice.
I think you can really start to tell the ones that have been written in AI and the ones that haven't now. And I think that's really good advice, Ed, and that's something, we use it every day, but always try to feed it the right information to start with. Otherwise you're just getting stuff out that you go, oh, that sounds quite good. You go, God, that's just not us.
You lose that authenticity.
Absolutely.
And do you know what? Social channels are getting better at telling. And therefore rewarding that authentic content. As we come up to sort of the last 5 minutes, if anybody's got any burning questions they'd like to put to the team, just pop them in the Q&A and I will try and come to them. Ed, we keep coming back about the return on investment and how do we track. If there's one key metric you'd recommend people track to monitor brand health, where do we start?
Revenue. I think at the end of the day, no matter what we do as marketers or brand managers, and I think this gets lost to a lot of people, is revenue and sales is our end goal. Just because you're not in a sales department, and I think I might have a bit of a unique point of view on this because I have both a marketing and sales hat on, but marketing is that aid to sales just as much as sales is that aid to marketing. Without one, you can't have the other. So what I always recommend, especially with people who are asking like, how do I measure this? Use revenue, and I think as well, it's a lot about thinking outside the box. I think with this, but it can even be the point of measure revenue in a certain area. So if you really want to see if your brand awareness is low or not working, blast brand awareness in a certain territory. See if sales go up or sales conversion increases in that area. So I really think as like either if you're a brand manager or market manager, focus on brand. Take that big picture. Focus on revenue, and this also answers a question I think around how can you persuade top level management investing in brand and marketing are needed. Is show the revenue change. If you're at a plateau and the market's growing or shrinking, and you're shrinking or growing with the market, your brand's having no effect on growth. You're actually just staying the same. So even if your sales are shrinking and the market's shrinking, you're actually staying the same. But if the market's growing and you're staying the same, you're actually shrinking, if that makes sense. I'm sure a lot of managers won't agree with that, but it is how it is. It's how a lot of businesses work. So
Yeah.
sorry, go on.
No, yeah, and you've done a really good job at trying to cover the answer to that question as well, because I'm glad somebody's asked it, because the number of boardroom tables that I've sat round that I've had to justify that investment in brand, and actually had to say, I cannot categorically say that you invest this 10 grand today, you'll get 20 grand tomorrow. But I can say that longer term, through that investment, it will have an impact on your bottom line. And I think on that, we see, particularly within agriculture, those businesses that have a leadership team that see the importance of investing in brand and take that leap of faith. And we see those that are much more hesitant at it. But in terms of what you said, Ed, come back to that data piece and start to bring it back from opinion to actually look, this is what the data said, this is what our zeros said in terms of revenue, and this is what the market's saying in terms of data. I don't know whether there's anything you'd like to add there, Rach, in terms of working for a business that very much does see the importance of investing in brand.
Yeah, I think just to try and put myself in your shoes, I think I try and identify that low-hanging fruit where you can prove that return on investment, and then also be asking management, well, where are the gaps? Where can we help with marketing? And basically put a business case together and then go in and then work on that. But also then ask, what are the downsides if we do nothing? What are the competition doing as well?
Perfect. And I'll let Ben come in, but while he is going to answer the question, there is the final poll. So after everything that we've said today, I'm intrigued more than anything. Do you still believe that you're working for a company that is a brand, a business, or both? So head over to the poll and just submit that. Ben, yeah, what's your take?
I think so. The question says, how do you persuade top level management when you can't provide the data? So what other ways are there? And for me, it could simply be like, so look at your competitors, go to their websites, pull off the headline on the homepage, the first kind of paragraph of description, take away the brand reference, take away the name, and take that to top level management, put 3 or 4 side by side and say, can you differentiate between the 3? Can you pick out which one is us? And if they can't, there's a clear case there for brand straight away. Or it could, go into them and say, right, when you go into the supermarket, why do you keep buying Kellogg's cereal? Why are you not buying supermarket own brand? Do you not want that to be us? Do you not want us to be able to charge 2-3 times as much for essentially the same product? That's for me, that's how you make the business case.
Yeah, bring it back to a world that they know. So I can see a board meeting there sat down with different boxes of cereal and seeing if that manages to resonate. Okay, so interesting on those last few votes, there's a few people changed their mind. So mix of both is still a majority of you, but there's more people now gone back to feeling that they have a business rather than a brand. So that is quite interesting, and hopefully today has definitely given you some food for thought. Last quick question that I think we can answer before we wrap up, but around what key areas would you include in brand guidelines, Ben?
Tone of voice is the key one for me, because like I say, you might use that to train AI, you're going to use that to teach your salespeople how to communicate. Tone of voice is key message, what that's going to be, key sales messages, brand purpose. Why do you exist? What is your brand promise to your target audience? Value proposition, which kind of ties all that together. And then I think also things like your brand story, how you got here. The key is why have you got those brand guidelines? So you want to be able to pass those brand guidelines to somebody else. It might be a new starter. It might be a marketing company you're working with. Whoever it might be, you want them to give them this document of brand guidelines and say, this is us. This communicates everything we are, everything we stand for, what we stand against, everything that we want to communicate to our target audience. It's all here.
Perfect. Well, we have now come up to time. So I'd just like to take this opportunity for thanking the panel for joining us. and thanking all of you for investing an hour in this. Hopefully we have definitely given you some food for thought when it comes to, do you have a business or do you have a brand, and hopefully a few takeaways that you could maybe look to utilize within your business. But just as we wrap up, I'm going to give the last word to the panel in terms of what is the key takeaway that they would like to leave with the audience. So Rach, I'll come to you first.
I think remember that mistakes make magic. I think that's really important. Just go and learn from them. And we're talking a lot about company brand today, but don't ever forget to invest in your own. Yeah,
and we need to do a whole new session on personal brand. Ben?
Put your message first. Focus on that. That is going to be key, and make sure it's clear and consistent. Those are the two buzzwords to take away, I think.
Perfect. And Ed?
Just think outside the box, figure out different ways you can measure it, or different forms you can try and boost your brand with it.
And for me, it always comes back down to the commercials. Keep coming back. If you have data and you measure that return on investment, then you should be able to hopefully persuade those people in power to give you the investment. So that's all for now. We will be following up tomorrow with an email, and then look out for our next webinar next month. All right. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Cheers, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.